One of my students was losing $1,000 a day, and it was not because he was bad at trading, and that's what you would normally think. He was actually a really good trader. He had a really good strategy, win rates above 80%, better than most people even watching this video will ever have inside of their entire trading career. And he was still losing money every single day. So today I'm going to walk you through exactly what was going wrong, exactly what we changed, and how 8 days later, he went from bleeding $1,000 a day to now making over $1,500 a day and pulled in $3,500 in total in that stretch. I'm not going to sit here and tell you to be disciplined. That's not advice. That's a slogan people say when they don't actually know how to fix the problem. I'm going to show you the actual structure I gave him, the same structure that I use myself with each and every single student that I work with. And by the end of this video, I'm giving you the full checklist that we used step by step on the screen. This is the same checklist people would pay thousands of dollars for inside of mentorships, and I'm handing it to you for free if you stick around to the very end. Now, before we get into it, I already know what a lot of you are going to do. You're going to watch the very first minute of this, get a little bit of a dopamine hit, and then get back to scrolling for the next secret indicator video. And then the next week, you're probably going to be asking yourself the exact same question that you've been asking for months. Why do I keep blowing my accounts? If you're tired of asking that question, actually lock in, watch this all the way through, and it will save you months. So let me introduce you to Steve. When he came to me, he wasn't some beginner throwing darts at a chart, hoping that something sticks, right? He had a system already. He had a real edge on paper. He would have been printing pretty much roughly around over an 80% win rate. And that is considered elite. Like most funded traders, most people who trade Forex or trade crypto or stocks know that if they've been doing this for years, they would kill for this win rate. But every single session, something would go wrong. And here's the part that took me a minute to actually see it clearly. It wasn't his strategy. His strategy was fine. But the more I started to diagnose him, the more I started to realize something was happening around his strategy. The decisions that he was making externally before and after the setups of his actual system was what was causing him problems. And I want to walk you through exactly what that looked like, right? Day after day, because if you're watching this right now, it would have been real money and you would have had some version of you doing the exact same thing. Maybe not identical, but something similar, a similar pattern, a similar emotional decision. And I hope that you can recognize this, and I promise you will. Here's what his sessions actually looked like, almost each and every single day, and it was a massive problem. He would sit down, he would pull up his charts and take really good setups with high probability trades, and he would win almost each and every single time, and that's exactly what his strategy called for. But he would be up for the day, maybe a really good amount, and that's the moment that everything would start to go sideways. Instead of stopping, he would keep going. He would do another session and another session, because the thought kept creeping into his head that he's already up, so he could squeeze a little more and probably try and make a little bit more, right? That's exactly what he was thinking. Well, that is greed. Not because he was a greedy person, because most people aren't, but because there was no wall in place telling him exactly enough was enough, right? When to stop. When was the hard stop, so that his brain could process the reason to not keep going. So he would keep taking another trade outside of his plan, a trade his checklist never actually confirmed, and hoping maybe it wins, maybe it doesn't. And the moment it doesn't is the moment he actually ended up taking a loss. And the real problem started to kick in. He would have revenge trading and he would try to immediately win that money back. Not because there was a valid setup on the chart, but because his ego couldn't sit there and just accept being down. He needed the fix right there, right now. And that's exactly when a good day turned into a losing day for him. And that losing day turns into $1,000 and then $3,000. And it's not because the market beat him, but because he beat himself twice, 3 times, multiple times during one session. And here's the brutal part about this, is that I want you to really sit with this. His strategy wasn't broken. His execution was. He had an 80% win rate and was still red at the end of most days because the 2 or 3 bad decisions that he made outside of his system, which were guaranteed to make him money in dollar terms, were fine, but the external side, the decisions that he made in order to want to make more money from his overtrading was causing him to lose, right? And now that one revenge trade that he experienced, right, with an oversized position, wiped out 4 or 5 of his clear wins. And that's exactly how you can still be right most of the time and end up losing money, right? It's not about how often you are right. It's about what you do the moment you are wrong and what you do the moment after you are right. And I know a lot of you are watching this right now and nodding your head because you've got a decent strategy too. Like, there are plenty of strategies out there that could work for you. Maybe not 80%, but they are decent. And you're not losing because you don't know how to trade. You are losing because there is no wall stopping you from trading past that exact point where your edge actually applies, right? Your strategy has an edge of maybe 2, 3, 4 trades a day. And after that, you're not trading a strategy anymore. You're gambling with extra steps. Now let's talk about the overall solution. So the first thing I did with Steve wasn't touch his strategy at all. I knew he was making money with it, and from the setup that he was following, I just needed him to have a little bit more accountability and a little bit more structure and understanding around his own profile and sort of a game plan that he could follow. So on the very first call that I had with him, I actually profiled him, and you can see a couple of the identities that he had over here, right? He was a high frequency trader. He was a pattern-based trader. He operated highly off of intuition and repetition, and he thrived off of making a lot of fast decisions. And he was really good at pattern recognition, high execution confidence, and he had that proven ability to win with structured thinking, right? But his weaknesses were pretty clear. He was addicted to stimulation. He loved to overtrade. He loved the adrenaline. He had no session end discipline, right? He pretty much was constantly hitting either wins and losses, and he kept going if he was having those wins, or he was simply trying to recover if he was losing. And another one was attention fragmentation. So he had short bursts of energy. He couldn't simply trade for an hour, right? He could only go for 10, 20 minutes at a time before his mentality started to drift. So it was mostly this sort of profile that I could use to then identify a sort of loop that he was going through, and it was pretty clear. He had a focus session, he would win, he would continue trading and then overtrade, frustration would kick in, he would start losing, he would come back later, and then the cycle would just repeat itself, and he would just have a losing day after having a winning day, which is something that you don't necessarily want. And this identity was pretty clear on exactly how I wanted to build off of this and make him a much better trader. Now, that's exactly what the first session that I had with him, he ended up making 2,000 Rand, which is about close to, I'd say, $200 after his very first session that he had with me, and I was able to go and audit exactly how his session went. But most importantly, I gave him a game plan, right? He needed a little bit of accountability to know exactly what he needed to do, specifically off of his trade size over here based on his account size, and also exactly what he was aiming for, his take profit, his stop loss, his trailing stop loss, right? And also stipulating a rule. If either gets hit, you need to walk away. You need to walk away regardless of what happens, right? And we also set out a goal for him. Now, this accountability and being able to profile him made him a lot more self-aware of exactly what he needed to do in each session. Because when you're having a problem with overtrading, it is pretty clear what needs to be fixed. And it's risk management. It's knowing when to walk away. What are you aiming for in a session, and what are you trying to stay away from? And being able to walk away when you hit that goal or whether you hit that stop loss. The first thing, like I said, that I did with him was I stayed away from his strategy and just improved his profile over here, characterized him into sort of the strengths and weaknesses he had, and tried to eliminate those weaknesses and improve his strengths. And then we started working on this game plan that he could follow, whilst building on accountability, right? Not judging him, not lecturing him after the fact that he had already created a lot of damage for himself, right? Just holding up a mirror and saying everything that was going wrong for him and how he could improve that. That's essentially the entire approach that I was taking behind this. Because here's the thing about greed and revenge trading is in the moments, they don't feel like greed and revenge. They just feel completely justified. I want to make more money on this trade, or I feel like I can win this trade, or I feel like I can make this money back, or I feel like I can make more. And these are completely normal emotional cycles that we have when we are trading that we simply need to overcome. And every single overtrade feels rational because when you're on the one inside of your own head making the decision. You need someone outside of it, someone who's actually emotionally attached to that specific trade to say no. For example, that wasn't your setup and it's just your emotions talking. And having that accountability for Steve definitely improved his trading overall, and that's exactly how he's now able to make over $1,500 each and every single day. And that's the whole reason why I run live trading sessions with my students every single morning inside of the inner circle. It's not just me calling out the entries that I take on the screen whilst I'm trading. It's being in the session with them in real time, so that the second that they start drifting from the plan, the second that I see something about them is starting to take over, I can catch onto it before it actually costs them any more money. And that accountability isn't some personality trait. It's a system that you build around yourself. It's a system you build around your students, because that willpower alone to losses and emotion basically will happen each and every single time, and you need to be able to resolve that for your students. And honestly, this is exactly what Steve learned whilst being inside of the 300 inner circle. He understood the importance of having my accountability as being a mentor for him. And I'll get into that later in this video. But the short version of it is that it's not just a course where you buy access and disappear into some Discord server. You actually work with me directly for 6 months. And the goal is for you to go and get above a 75% win rate across 2 weeks. And if it takes longer than that, I'm not going to kick you out. You're still going to work with me until you reach that goal. More on that in a bit. So the second thing was the risk structure. Like I said, the second thing, and honestly, this is the piece that actually changed the math for him, because I was giving him a real risk management structure, not some vague advice like manage your risk or don't overtrade, which is kind of everything that every guru says, right? They don't give you an actionable plan. So that's sort of the kind of thing that every guru would say. But what I'm trying to provide to him, and what I provided to him, was actual numbers. I gave him an actual specific number that he could execute on, because it all comes down to execution that you need to improve. And the most important thing was I set his stop loss at plus 5 units, which is 5% per day, right? His take profits. And that's exactly what he was aiming for. And once he hits that, his session is over. It doesn't matter how good the next setup looked, no matter how confident he was. It doesn't matter if he felt like he was going to perform even better or make even more money. His decision that he had to make with the accountability from me was that he had to log off, because I always had to constantly remind him, like, Steve, how would you feel if you hopped on a call with me and said that you didn't listen to your take profits? And he said he would feel horrible. And already indoctrinating that into his head before his sessions has honestly helped him out so much. So the entire fix for Steve wasn't some new strategy. It wasn't a new indicator. It was removing his own ability to sabotage his own strategy that he already had that was working for him. It was these external factors of overtrading and these sort of triggers that came into his brain that we had to eliminate. And that was essentially what allowed him to improve his trading. We capped his stop loss at minus 3 units on his best day, and he was forced to walk away when he had winners instead of just giving it all back, because we could clearly see that he had a good win rate. He was making a lot of money. So what I was trying to teach him essentially was to try and keep that money. Now, here's the part that most people skip, because most traders would throw out these terms and just say, like, try and keep this rule inside of your head, try not to overtrade, try and follow your stop loss and take profits. But none of that is real unless you have something that you can actually use. So this is the calculator that we got Steve using, and it's got everything that he's ever needed. He's got his take profit and stop loss over here. He can track his sessions each and every single time he trades to know the moment that his stop loss or take profit gets hit. And this pretty much allowed him to have a lot more structure in his trading, right? Because he knew that the moment he hit his stop loss, for example, a notification would pop up over here, and that would be the end of his session. And the complete opposite applied for if he had a win and he reached his take profit, he would get a notification to tell him to end his session. Because I don't want you to be tracking this in your head either, because you will lose count the second that you have your first win and then your second loss, and everything just becomes a mess. It's very difficult to track within your head, but when you have it clearly in front of you, you know exactly what you need to do, exactly what you are aiming for, and exactly what you're trying to get out of a session. On top of this, he also got access to this journal over here, and this journal allows him to go and track his sessions based on exactly how much he was making. So for example, if he made $1,500 on a day, he could click end session over here, and he was then able to go and review his entire session, right? Seeing if he followed his rules, seeing any patterns, any mistakes that he made, the market context, rating his process execution, emotional control, sticking to his strategy, his recovery speed, any mistakes he made, anything he did right, any lessons he learned, and plenty other questions over here. And this sort of thing allows him to categorize exactly what he is still doing right, what he is still doing wrong, and allows him to be accountable towards a goal that he is aiming for. For example, this is exactly what I'm doing for myself. I'm currently up $8,640, and my goal is to reach $1 million in my trading accounts, and I'm keeping myself accountable each and every single day with all the sessions that I'm doing over here. And this is exactly what Steve ended up doing, and how he is becoming a much better trader overall. And this is exactly what Steve has been doing, logging in each and every single session with the calculator, seeing every single pattern that he was following, whether it was a positive or a negative pattern that was making him money or making him lose money, right? And if you obviously want to get access to this calculator and the journal, or both of them, just go onto my Instagram, right? There'll be a link below and a link in my bio that will take you to my Instagram, and just send me the word calculator or journal and I'll send them straight over to you. So here is the exact checklist that we use before each and every single one of our entries, and there's no exceptions, right? So I'm going to keep this up on screen over here, and I'm going to prove to you on an actual chart right now that this isn't just a theory, right? So what are we specifically looking for before each and every single trade? Well, we need to identify a clear trend, and as you know, these are 5-second trades that we are taking. It's not like we're sitting on a chart and waiting hours and hours every day to place a trade. We're identifying the trade on a 1-minute candle, waiting for that pullback that is visible after a new high or low has been formed, and seeing that that candle colors match the trend. Therefore, we can then take our payout of 92% if that obviously is the case, and always ensuring that we have specific constraints inside of our trades, that we are taking a trade where the 1-minute candle has had at least more than 3 seconds into the candle and still more than 5 seconds remaining in that candle before we can place the trade. And obviously only one trade at a time. We're not trying to spam. So you can see here that this 1-minute candle has a visible pullback that is clear. So we will take a 5-second trade and expect it to push back towards this high over here and win the trade. You can see that it matches the trend over here. The current candle color is matching the overall trend, which means that the moment we get a pullback from a new high which was formed on this 1-minute candle, we place the trade and we win $920. And this is exactly what Steve was doing. All that he had against him that was causing him to lose money was that he was simply overtrading, right? For example, in this case, we end up losing the trade. That's fine, because we can take another trade. It's going to continue pushing back up and we're going to win it. Right, there we go. We can go to another candle over here and we can see that this is overall a downtrend, so we're not going to place the trade. Right, we can look for another entry. We see that this is in a downtrend. The candlestick doesn't match the color, so we do not place the trade. We can see that this is a very clear pullback over here, which means that this is going to continue back towards this low. And you can see after the 5 seconds, we end up winning the trade. So let's go through why each and every single one of these matters and why it's not just a random list, because each and every single one on here exists to close a specific hole. You see, the trend confirmation and the candle color that matches the trend keeps you trading with the momentum instead of trying to guess a reversal. You see, most losing trades come from people trying to call a top or a bottom instead of just trying to ride what is already happening. Now, the new high or low that has formed that is clearly visible, as well as the pullback which forms, gives you your entry timing, right? You're not chasing price, you're waiting for the market to show you where it wants to go. And then you're getting in on that retracement instead of just at an extreme. Now, the payout is at 92 exactly. This one surprises people, but it matters. You see, your edge is your only edge at the right price. If the payout isn't there, the math behind your win rates doesn't hold up anymore. And the lower your payout, the higher your win rate has to be in order to make more money. And that will obviously make a lot more sense if you click the link below and watch the free course, which breaks down this exact checklist a little bit more in detail. Next is the 3+ seconds into the candle, as well as the 5+ seconds remaining inside of the candle. Now, this is about not jumping the gun and not entering too late into the trade to the point where you're actually just gambling, right? Because it forces that patience into the entry itself. And then the last one, which is one trade and never spamming. This is the rule that single-handedly stopped Steve from having greed when he was trading and being able to track his trades a lot better. It's built directly into the checklist, not as some afterthought or some alternative, but as an actual box that you have to check. If you can't check each and every single box, then you don't have the trade. Full stop, right? You can't take the trade. And if you already took your one trade, you do not take another one to chase a feeling, to chase a loss, or to just make a little bit more money. Before this video ends, I just want to make sure this actually lands for you and it doesn't just become another video you watch and you forget about tomorrow. Because every single thing I just walked you through, the checklist, the unit caps, all of it is useless if you're not actually tracking it session to session. That is the whole reason that we have the journal, which exists for you to use. It's the difference between I think I overtrade and actually seeing yourself overtraded in black and white. As I already explained before, if you want to get access to it, just message me on Instagram with the word calculator or the word journal. Either one of those is fine, and I'll get it sent over to you, no cost. So here's an actual takeaway from Steve's story. And I want this to actually land with you, stick with you, because his problem was never his strategy. He didn't need a new indicator. He didn't need to buy another course. What he needed was structure wrapped around the strategy he already had, right? And accountability on his sessions so someone could catch him before the damage was done, as well as hard limits on his risk so his emotions physically couldn't override his edge anymore. 8 days after we put that structure in place, he went from losing $1,000 a day to now making over $1,500 a day and pulled in over $3,500 across that 8-day stretch. And that's not a new strategy. That is the exact same strategy he walked in with, just with the leaks being patched. And I want you to really hear this part because it's the whole reason I made this video. You probably don't lack knowledge. You don't need to buy another course. You don't need another indicator promising you the secret. What you're missing is the structure around what you already know and the accountability to actually stick to it when it's 2 p.m. and you're down and every part of you wants to take one more trade to make that money back. You see, if you're still watching this video and you know your strategy actually works, maybe you've got a good win rate like Steve did with an 80% win rate, but somehow you're still not where you want to be. That's not a knowledge problem. That's exactly what the 300 inner circle is built on to actually fix you. And here's exactly what it is. You work with me directly for 6 months. I live trade with the group every single morning. You get direct coaching on your specific strategy, which is personalized and tailored uniquely to you around a diagnosis that will work for you across those 6 months. And the entire goal, the actual target that we are working towards is 75% across 14 days. That's the number that tells us that you are actually ready to become truly profitable. And here's the part I want to be clear about. If the 6 months goes by and you haven't hit that target yet, you don't get cut loose. You stay in the mentorship with me until I get you there. I'm not interested in taking your money and moving on to the next person. I'm interested in you actually getting to that number that you are aiming for. If that sounds like what you need, apply through the link in the description. You see, I personally review each and every single application, because I only take on people that I know I'm actually going to help, that I know I'm going to improve and make a much better trader. If it looks like a good fit, we'll hop on a call, get everything sorted, and get you started. And if you're not ready for that step yet, that's fine too. Go grab the free course, right? The link is there. Go grab the calculator or the journal. Just message me on Instagram and start using those 2 tools this week and you'll notice a massive improvement. Just start somewhere. If this video helped you, please do me a favor and like it, subscribe, and if you're new here, drop a comment letting me know what you want to see next. I read each and every single one, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.